there are many lessons that we've learned during the financial crisis. Perhaps the first of them is that the business model that characterized the last decade, which was based on too much debt, both in the public and private sector, needs to be revisited.
Anyone who claims they know precisely the single reason why this crisis came about, or they know the perfect solution, is wrong.
One of the main lessons is that we have to avoid it. We have to find ways of trying to prevent crisis much more than before.
Europe must change to survive and to guarantee social conditions for all people. And it means that we have to have changes in the labor market. It's flexi-security that's essential. We need more entrepreneurship. And there we have to have education for people to be able to create firms.
What governments have done throughout Europe for many years is basically borrowed as opposed to raising money from taxes, borrowed money to fund public services, and eventually that would have caused a problem anyway. It's been exacerbated now by the banking crisis. So basically, I suppose the main message we get from it is one, that problems have to be solved. They will eventually happen, they won't go away. Unfortunately, the second lesson we've learned is that we haven't yet got a solution.
There's been a lack of demand in the economy has given rise to a very large rise in unemployment, and so to solve the problem of debt and to solve the problem of unemployment, we need to increase activity, we need to increase economic growth. For that, we also need to create vision for people, and so potential growth rate in the economy is an important statement that needs to be made, not just in small countries like Ireland, but for Europe as well. And I believe that the 2020 project from Europe is probably far too lacking in ambition.
It's really important that the new fiscal treaty that is being ratified by various EU countries over the next while, it's very important that it is accompanied by a redesign of the currency union, because the currency union has been shown to have some very serious design flaws.
There are numerous growth potentials contained in our member states and in the single market of the European Union that are not fully used at the moment.
Economic growth, why is it that Africa is poor and Europe is rich? Why is it that China used to be the richest place in the world and then fell to become one of the poorest places in the world? The truth is, it's a very complicated and badly understood thing that we just don't know for sure what makes economic growth.
The main source of economic growth for Europe will be when we solve the public financial and banking crisis. We'll be back to innovation and competitiveness, the kind of products we develop, the efficiency with which we manage the economy, and particularly how we compete with the rest of the world.
Unless you have a financial system which is cleaned and which is solvent and which is looking forward and which dares to give credits to people who are taking risks, real risks in companies that produce something. Unless you have that, you won't get growth.
Europe needs to have a centralized system of bank supervision and a centralized system of bank resolution. In other words, a proper system for dealing with banks that go bust.
If the taxpayer has to bail out institutions, then I think there needs to be some clawback to ensure that the people who are making decisions know that they cannot make short-term decisions and get rich, and then allow the mistakes to become apparent later and let taxpayers pay.
Politicians are learning now, or have learned in the last couple of years, that they have to listen more to outside advice, to independent knowledge from experts, from academics, from journalists. So, in other words, politicians cannot and do not know everything.